I always say it, and I know it's repetitive, so I'm sorry, but welcome back to the channel. In today's aviation news recap, I want to take a look at news with Emirates, then moving over to British Airways with the resumption of a route, and then a leading airline basically threatening to leave an airport over new restriction. Let's begin with Emirates, who in the last couple of days openly apologized to its customers following some of the worst recorded storms that hit the United Arab Emirates. As a result, the company and its day-to-day operations, you may have seen, were thrown into a complete and utter meltdown. Basically, on Tuesday, April 16th, the UAE saw its highest rainfall in 75 years, and thus locations such as Dubai were unable to cope with the significant amount of rain in such a short period of time. Not only was the UAE impacted by the rainfall, but we saw scattered storms and strong winds, which made offering a robust operation near on impossible. The carrier diverted flights and moved away from Dubai whenever possible, but ultimately cancellations, flight delays, and other issues were all high, and this meant that their operations took nothing short of a major hit. The carrier said it was forced to cancel over 400 flights across 3 days following the rainfall, but also the substantial delays were felt in response to the difficulties, which had a knock-on effect and impacted many people. While many have been stuck in Dubai, some have also been away from home or attempting to connect onwards to flights. The problem runs far deeper than, unfortunately, those that have just been stuck in Dubai. The cancellation rates will leave holes across their network for some time, with customers attempting to travel, but maybe schedules not being as optimal as they would have liked. This will, of course, also cause a general inability to meet the booked demand that is present. Tim Clark, the airline's president, in fact, did offer his sincere apologies in an open letter to every customer who had their travel disrupted. Emirates said that they were aware of the impact, and they now have two clear priorities to deal with such a situation. Clark said one of their most essential focuses, though, from the moment the rainfall hit, was their passengers' safety. What that means is not operating flights for the sake of them that would be done so in an unsafe condition. The second priority is to work on getting operations back on track. Ultimately, this will be the tougher of the two focuses. Emirates says there are challenges now regarding staffing and many other supply shortages, which will mean likely further cancellations and delays to ensure that long-term stability can be had. Where possible, Emirates says it has rebooked customers, put them up in hotels, and more. On the 20th of April, they said that they were also slowly returning back to normal, with flight schedules restored. However, a task force has been put in place to fix the many problems that are being experienced for stranded passengers. These problems include passengers who have been unable to track their baggage. Emirates says that the task force will focus on delivering over 30,000 pieces of luggage that have either been lost or left behind. While the airline scrambles to sort out the difficulties experienced, customers are hardly happy, and there is a lack of communication that is present. But under the extreme circumstances, while the company has been criticized for its terrible handling of the situation, protocol certainly was thrown out the window, as this was in fact a historic event. Moving the focus over to British Airways, and they've officially relaunched scheduled passenger flights to Abu Dhabi as part of their continued network rebuild efforts that stem all the way from the global pandemic. Service resumption between Heathrow and Abu Dhabi resumed following a 4-year hiatus. Again, this was caused by the pandemic and the associated restrictions, and it has taken this long now for the airline to finally resume service. Operating as BA73, the flight bound for Abu Dhabi departs at 10:25 p.m. and an arrival the following morning is scheduled at 8:30 a.m. After close to 2 hours on the ground in Abu Dhabi, the inbound flight as BA72 departs at 10:10 before finally arriving into Heathrow in the afternoon at 3:20. British Airways is using the 787-9 Dreamliner on a service that will operate year-round. The carrier believes this will strengthen ties between the UAE and the UK. The airline will also focus on multiple demographics, so this means it will not restrict itself to just one on the service. That means those travelling for leisure, business, or to visit loved ones are all targeted. There's also an emphasis on the capacity for cargo too. British Airways will operate this service, and they say that they'll bring their award-winning services resources to the capital's latest terminal offering as well, which is all a positive in their network rebuild and obviously network growth efforts. For the flight to be immediately placed on daily really does indicate just how important they envisage this service to be for the long term, but notably it's taken a while for it to resume. On to the final story in today's aviation news recap, at least. Transavia, a leading European airline and part of the Air France-KLM group, has become the newest airline to respond to the ongoing Amsterdam Schiphol night closure discussion. The airline's CEO outlined his concerns about the intended plans to close Schiphol overnight, and just what it would do for the airline moving forward. Such a closure would impact the airline's ability to offer the schedule it would ideally like, and as a result, the company says it may very well exit the Dutch market altogether in response. Transavia is ultimately not the only company that has expressed frustrations and concerns over the proposed ban on flights during the night. However, it is certainly the latest to come out so publicly and say that it may very well be forced to leave the market as basically a response. So Amsterdam Schiphol's proposed ban on night flights would essentially prohibit departures from midnight through to 6 a.m. Think of it basically as a night curfew, which for most airlines, yes, wouldn't change too much. But for an airline like Transavia, if you have a look at their schedule, which can be more than present on apps such as Flight Radar or maybe even their website, you'll see that a lot of slots into Amsterdam Schiphol are operated during this period. The airport has, and therefore, if we're going to get that night closure, that's going to have some pretty negative ramifications on them. Amsterdam Schiphol has been under fire for some time now. This follows several key decisions made as to how the airport wants to say improve the quality of life for those living around the airport. Whether this comes in the form as I'm discussing right now, the restrictions in flying overnight, or just generally the restriction of slots that was set to impact many airlines. Take a look at JetBlue, that at one point in time had removed their presence from Amsterdam altogether in response to this. They simply weren't going to be awarded the slots. Now that was organised, but it really showcases so many instances that have led to major headlines around this airport. If Transavia were to leave Amsterdam, and therefore the Netherlands, there would be significant ramifications due to the complexities involved in moving these operations. This is again an operation that has been very important to the company's recent success. Transavia has not been quiet about its disapproval of the prospective changes and their implications. While the focus of the airport and government is to lower noise and improve the quality of life, airlines argue that this will have more negative ramifications than good. These concerns include raised airfares and increased difficulty to reaching locations thanks to basically a reduction in flights that are offered. Flights operating overnight are, yes, far from ideal, but that's where Transavia has garnered a lot of benefits because the slots are cheaper and the company is able to keep their costs low. Additionally, airlines such as Transavia highlight that the recent implementation of your next-generation planes, which remember, have been purposefully built to be quieter than older generation planes, therefore basically lead to quieter flying. So they're confused why these decisions are even being discussed. That's going to conclude today's aviation recap. If you've got any thoughts, let me know down below in the comments. Thanks a lot for your support. Take care, be safe. I'll see you same place, same time tomorrow for your latest news. And we'll fly.